Guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I'm really excited about today's guest sharing stories of empowerment, leaving you inspired, educated. And today I have Daphne Valcin, and she's helping mission driven leaders build a firm foundation. She's got a very resilient story. We're going to talk about productivity hacks, we're going to talk about self employment, personal mission, and I'm really excited to have her on the show. So, Daphne, welcome.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, kind of tell people I'm always interested in the Superman stories. So tell people your origin story and what you do now.
Sure. So I've always had a passion for helping and supporting individuals. I spoke at my preschool graduation, my mommy says. I don't have any recollection of that. And then was chosen to be a Woman of Tomorrow speaker. So I spoke in front of my school in Miami. So hundreds of students in elementary school. I do remember that. Spoke at my college graduation at the University of Florida. So other people always tended to see something in me when it came to how I was with others. And I kind of saw it in myself, but I like to work in the background. So fast forward, I wanted to get an MBA and work for a consulting firm. But then I met my husband and decided to switch career tracks to something that may be even better for me when it comes to having a growing family. If I was, if we were to get married and all that kind of stuff. We got married within a year of knowing one another. I got my started my life coaching certification the same month that we were engaged. And about 6 months into starting my business, I wanted to shut it down because I thought you were going to launch a business and all the clients were going to come and it was going to be awesome. But apparently businesses take more work. So I decided to keep going with encouragement from my husband. And about, I would say a year later, my revenues were on par with salary basically that I had previously. So I was able to not do any side gigs and only do my business within about a year of launching and about a year and a half be able to have a salary. So that's kind of a little bit of my background in a nutshell.
Yeah, really interesting. And so kind of talk about, using your why to drive your personal mission forward.
Sure. So I think that in life in general, there's so many different challenges. As people say, life be lifing, right? So there's all kinds of things going on with family, with what we perceive ourselves to be, whether it's good or bad, different challenges that we experience in our youth and how those impact the way that we think. But what I know from being in business for a while and then just being very resilient in life is that if you can understand the things that motivate you most, that can actually help to push you when you don't feel like moving forward anymore. In short, one of my biggest whys is my mom. She is an immigrant to the United States from Haiti. Mm-hmm. When she moved here, she didn't speak any English. She grew up with her family not having very much money. And in short, she made her way from working at a factory, not making very much money, to working at a bank when she learned more English, to getting her associate's degree when she became 25, to getting her bachelor's degree when she became 40, and buying herself a house, right, that we all lived in, buying her a car, buying my dad a car, buying me a car, buying my brother a car, sending us to school and sending people to school all around the world, coming from a background where she didn't have very much when she was growing up. So she's one of my biggest motivations when I'm like, oh man, things are getting hard. I'm like, but I want to make my mom proud and I want to be her legacy. I want my grandchildren and my children to see me in a similar way that I see my mother when it comes to how she inspires me. So that's my why. But everyone has to figure out, is your why money? Is it success? Is it a feeling of success? Is it how people perceive you? Is it living in a peaceful neighborhood? Is it a dollar number in your business that signifies you've done the things that you wanted to do to get to a certain place? Respect. So knowing what your why is, even if it's spiritual, for some people it's self-actualization based on some sort of, spiritual principles, that can help you to be able to move further faster.
I love that. I love the very inspiring story of, the grit and hard work. And it's quite interesting because, the way you describe success is really not what you hear about in the mainstream media. And I think, I was talking to another guest. I think, mainstream media is now just a propaganda machine. And I love that your why, and, every person's definition of success is different. People are looking for different things, different needs, wants. And I love this idea. So your personal mission to drive you forward faster. And so kind of talk about, you have productivity hacks to transform your life, work, and business. What are those?
Sure. So there's so many, but I'll share a few. I'll share a few that I think are some of the most helpful. So I once saw an interview by with this gentleman, Edward Hollowell and Marie Forleo, and she was interviewing him about why smart people underperform. And based on Christopher's background, I'm assuming that many of the people who are watching this would probably call yourselves ambitious people, right? Who do great things. And so I consider myself the same. So I watched this interview. And one of the biggest things he says is that we set way too many goals. And because of that, we don't achieve very many of them. So he suggested, and I would suggest, setting 3 major goals a year, 3 major goals a month, 3 major goals a week, 3 major a day. And I had a client say, well, is that 3 major at work and 3 at home? And I said, well, Edward Hollowell said 3 a day. So I would say 3 total a day. But if we're thinking about it on a more granular basis, if you have a work schedule where you're working, 9 to 5, or you have a work schedule where maybe you're doing a side hustle and you're working at 4 hours, I also believe that you can ask yourself within this work time, what are the top 1 to 3 things that I would like to accomplish? Because if not, there's so many different things that are distracting us, so many little things, administrative things that can take our attention when we have to think about what is most of value to me. And if you're working for someone else, what is most of value to my employer? So the rule of threes. And then there's something that I talk about as targeted time. So I made this up. This is so you won't find this anywhere. So if you think about a target, right? So you think about throwing a dart and you're trying to throw it right in the center. In order to prioritize your time well, we have to get the priority right and the time block that it goes in correct. If you're using the ball and you're throwing it at the target, it's not gonna work. And if you're throwing the dart on the outside, that's not where you're trying to do it, right? So there are certain activities in every one of our lives professionally that we know it goes best in the morning, or it goes best in the evening. It goes best when we first wake up. So my business, I have a 6-figure business, right? But I didn't because I wasn't selling anything. I wasn't trying to call anyone to follow up. I didn't even like to do the marketing part of my business, even though my undergrad is in public relations. So what I do is, and this is something practical you can do, close out all the tabs that are not associated with my priorities for the morning. The evening before I work, I only have the tabs open that are the things that I need to do in the morning. I know that my revenue generating activities and my marketing needs to be done in the morning. So we're identifying what are the top 3 things that we need to do for the whole day, right? And if you're thinking about just your business or your work and your business, that's fine. 1 to 3 things. But then you're taking away everything else out off of your computer that is not what you're supposed to be focused on the day before. So when you get in front of your computer, you're able to see what is priority. So those are 2 different, well, actually, I probably said a few different hacks in there, but targeted time, knowing the rule of threes, and then using your tabs to kind of decrease your tendency to procrastinate or to be distracted. And we all get distracted, and that's okay. But there are certain things that we could do to reduce that.
Yeah. And I love this. I love that, targeted time, and just kind of, I have a timer that's really helped, 30 minutes, just focused, no distractions. So kind of moving into you talking about using these productivity hacks, and you're developing your balancing life, family life, and professional life to win at both. But why do you think that so many are finding it challenging to balance their lives personally and professionally?
Yeah, so someone was talking about this yesterday, how our parents didn't have work to take home usually. They worked and they came home, unless they were on call, right? Unless your parent was a doctor or something like that. They worked and they got home and they were home. In our generation, I'm a millennial. We had the laptop get really popular before it was desktop. So you couldn't take your work home. Right. So the laptop got really popular. Cell phones became super popular around that time as well. We didn't have our parents. My mom had a cell phone she used like twice a year because it cost so much to use, and not many people had them, right? So we have cell phones. And then with the pandemic, more people started to work from home. So we didn't have a very specific cutoff time unless you worked a certain job where you weren't allowed to take work home. In business, and I think even in certain other career professional jobs, there's also the temptation that the more I work, the more money I will make. And the more money I will make, the better life will be. However, here is something that I've noticed. I had the opportunity to work with all kind of people, people who are very under-resourced in my life. And I've also had the chance to work with very wealthy people. And here's what I've discovered. If you don't take care of the things that are most meaningful for you, for example, family, romantic relationship, your home, your balance, you can have a lot of wealth and still be very unhappy. So having that cutoff so that you can go skateboarding, even though you're 50 something years old, that's great. Or go play saxophone if that's what you love to do, or go run or walk or exercise or meditate or do yoga or spend time with your children. Life can be challenging if you don't put those things in the right boxes. So for me, what that looks like is I try to do work while my children are at school. And when they're at home, I call it an after school mom. So we're doing activities, we're doing some dancing, I'm doing homework, I'm cooking. And then when they go back to sleep, I can do some more administrative stuff. I sneak it in the night. So that is why it's so important to have that balance. But that's where I think the lack of balance comes from technology and just kind of societal norms and how those have changed as well.
Yeah. So kind of, talking about, balance and then talking about this leadership role. And one thing is, what's the one thing you see preventing senior leaders from thriving in their roles?
So that is a very good question. I feel like the number one thing is lack of understanding of how to have difficult conversations that need to be had. So there's a book called Crucial Conversations, and that book cites like the top maybe 20% most successful people in every company know how to have very crucial conversations, no matter the level of whoever they're talking to. They can talk to a senior VP, they can talk to their direct reports, they can talk to their colleagues and share feedback or share suggested shifts, or maybe share about what happened in an awkward conversation the week before and how they want to move forward. So I think that's probably the number one. Even if you're asking for a promotion or a salary, it can be a difficult conversation, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And what should any leader be doing now to position themselves for a promotion?
Yeah, so a few things. I think one, this is going to sound cliche, but understanding your value. Here's what I mean by that. If you haven't heard this already, everyone should have a document that you're keeping outside of your work folder, outside of your work email address, that keeps track of the different accomplishments that you are achieving in your role. I would say on a weekly basis. I can't tell you how many clients I've had who are executive coaching clients where I'm asking them to tell me about maybe how much revenue they've generated within their position, or sales numbers, or the amount of people that they've trained, or the amount of maybe clients they've served, or the revenue of that client. And they knew it when they worked on a certain project, but they've completely forgotten about it. And they've completely forgotten about the impact they had in certain projects. So every week, if I were you, I would keep track of those accomplishments on a document. And you can use those accomplishments to be able to communicate that to your leadership. You should be communicating those wins to your mentors and internal sponsors within the company. So people who can create opportunities for you or share opportunities with you. But also, even later, if you choose to transition from your role into a different role, internally or externally, those accomplishments can help you. One of the things I was telling a client even this morning is that in order to go from where you are to where you want to be, you need to position yourself as someone who creates impact and who is able to create and develop new ideas and new projects. But she couldn't quite communicate that yet. But she's done it. She's done it. So there's one thing is doing it, the other is tracking it, and then the next thing is being able to communicate it. And I think the other next important thing that I think is important is that crucial conversations piece. So many people are afraid to ask for whatever it is that they need or ask for what it is that they want for a number of reasons. It could be cultural. So my family is from the Caribbean. I'm Haitian American. So you're taught to respect authority and kind of do your work and do your work in excellence. And respecting authority means not talking back as well, right? But asking for what you want or need is not talking back. It's just asking for what you want or need. So a reframing needs to happen for those who maybe are hesitant to have difficult conversations to understand what it is that they need. I'm also a DISC practitioner, so I do DISC workshops and DISC trainings. So sometimes it's understanding that people's styles are different. So if you're someone who maybe is very dominant, knowing how to talk to someone who maybe seems a lot less dominant and how to make that be okay. Or if you're less dominant or you're very engaging, how to talk to someone who maybe their personality is more dominant and seems like they would push back, but maybe they wouldn't. So understanding how to have those crucial conversations is also really, really important as well.
Yeah. How can people contact you, follow you, reach out to you, check out your work, etc.?
Sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Daphne Valcin. So you can also find me on Instagram, again, at Daphne Valcin. And you'll see my name on the screen if you're watching. And if you're listening, it's Daphne. Last name is Valcin. And my website is daphnevalcin.com. So any of those ways works for me.
Yeah. And for all the listeners out there, let's thank Daphne for coming on and really interesting discussion. Be sure to check out all her social media links. These will be in the show notes, and be sure to check out her website as well. And thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure.